Welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm always getting questions about how I do my eyebrows, what I put on them, all of that. So I decided to do a little tutorial, give y'all the rundown, the tea on how I do them. So if you are interested in seeing how I got this look, stay tuned. So things you'll need for this tutorial, you'll need a flat angle brush. I'm using Max 263 flat angle brush, and y'all do not judge me, I've had this brush forever. You will also need concealer. I'm using LA Girl concealer in the color Fawn. You will also need your choice of eyebrow pencil or eyebrow powder. I like to use NYX's eyebrow pencil in the color dark brown, and it's not pictured here, but I also have the powder with 2 different shades in it by NYX. It'll be shown later on in the video. You will also need a flat concealer brush. This one is Max 195 concealer brush, and yes, it is a million years old as well, so do not judge me. But any flat concealer brush will work for this tutorial. You'll also need a beauty blender. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is you want to shape your tails of your brows. So I like to start at the bottom, and I basically just try to fill in my brows and make the tail into the shape that I'd like. So at the tails of your brows is where you're going to draw the hardest. So you're going to press the hardest to make it quite dark. You can start off light while you're filling it in, but as you go on and fill in the whole tail, you're going to make it as dark as possible. So as you can see, the tail is pretty dark. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. Things you want to remember when filling in your brows or doing your brows in general is that they are sisters, not twins. So they're not going to look exactly the same, but the goal is to try to get them to look as close as possible to the same. And if you mess up, you can always just erase it like I'm doing with my finger. Okay. So now that we're done with the tails of our brows, we're going to move to the inner portion. So as you move closer to the beginning of your brow, you want to continue to fill it in, but try not to press as hard as you were pressing for the tail. And then when you get to the very front, as I'm doing, try to press as light as possible in order to create an ombre gradient effect. To keep your brows even, as I'm doing, you can try to measure, like create kind of like a mental note on where you started on one side in order for the other side to match up. And then just do the same thing as you did on the other brow on this side, remembering to stay fairly light towards the inner portion of your brow. Anytime during this process, you can always go back and fill in parts that you feel are missing or you feel like you need to fill in to make them look more similar. That's pretty much what I'm doing here. I'm just continuing to fill in the center of my brows, trying to get them to look as even as possible. Okay, so this is the NYX powder that I was talking about earlier. So we're going to use this to further fill in our brows. I'm using the light brown portion, and it also comes with like this little application brush and a brush to brush your actual brows out with. As you can see, yes, this is old as well, so there's powder everywhere in there, but it still gets the job done. So you're just going to use the powder, the light brown powder, to fill in the very front of your brows so that, like you see, it'll create a more of an ombre effect in your brows. So you just go all along your brow, connecting it to where you started with the dark brown powder. And yes, it looks crazy. That's why I made that face, but we're going to work it out, so it's cool. It's cool. Then you brush out your brows in order to make sure that they're all even and none of your hairs are acting cray-cray. Okay, so now I'm going to take my LA Girl concealer and my flat angle brush, and I always take the concealer and squirt a little bit on my hand, and I'm going to dip the flat angle brush into the concealer, and then I'm going to go along the inner portion of my brow, being very careful to create the shape that I would like and not to erase what I did with my powder and my pencil. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, and if you mess up, it's fine. You can always go back and add with the pencil or the powder, but just try to be very careful. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing I did on the bottom on the top, being very careful to carve out my brows while not erasing everything that I drew already. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, and I'm going to use where I started on the left side to be my landmark for where I should start on the right side, so I can make sure that they are even, and just carve out the upper portion of my brow. Okay, now I'm going to take my flat concealer brush and I'm going to dip it into the concealer on my hand. And I'm basically going to use that. So the flat angle brush outlines your brows. The flat concealer brush is going to make it easier to blend, but also just to clean it up. So as you can see, I'm going along the line that I made with the flat angle brush, being very careful to keep it as clean as possible. I'm doing the same thing on the other side, and this is just going to make it easier when we go in with the beauty blender to blend it out so that you don't have any really loud demarcation lines on your face, because that ain't cute. And if you happen to mess up with the flat concealer brush, you can always use the tip of it to clean up your lines, as you see I'm doing here. I am struggling, honey, with these lashes. They are all in the way. Excuse me for that, but I'm basically just trying to get underneath my lashes, into my brow line, and clean it up. Now I'm going to do the same thing I did on the bottom of my brows, at the top, I'm going to be very careful to clean up my brows and create the shape that I would like without erasing everything. I just go all along my line. And this is the part where I thin out my brows as well. So as you can see, the left brow is way smaller than the right one. So I use the concealer to really shape it and make it as thin as I want. Trying to keep my hand as steady as possible while I carve out my brows and make sure that they are the shape I want. Just be very careful. If you do mess up, like I said, it's fine. You can always go back and fix it with your brow pencil or your powder. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my flat angle brush and the concealer, and I'm going to add it to the front or the inner portion of my brows. I'm going to use that to pretty much sculpt the front portion of my brows and make, I don't really like my inner portion too boxy, so I basically just try to create a box without having it be so defined. So like you'll see here, I'll grab my brush and I'm going to brush out the inner portion of my brows to make sure that it's not too boxy, and that it's also going to help create that ombre effect. It's going to make it lighter, as you can see. So you just continue to brush it out until you get it to your liking. And I'm just going to go back in with my pencil and fix that little portion that I brushed off or wiped away with the concealer. And I'm just going to go back after that with my concealer and my flat concealer brush and make sure that my line is still clean at the top. Okay, and now I'm going to use my beauty blender, dip it into my concealer, and blend out all this concealer so that it's not looking crazy. So, the struggle is so real with these lashes, but I'm basically going to use my beauty blender, which is damp by the way. I use some water to dampen it, to blend out the concealer onto my eyelids, my nose, and as you'll see as I move along, the top portion of my brows. Okay, so this is the finished look. I went ahead off camera and finished the rest of my face. So, give you an up close view. like. And that is the finished product. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you loved this video. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe down below. And I'll see you in my next one.